Welcome back to Coast, Customer Success in Practice. I'm Kat, and I'm here with my co-host Tam, and we're two managers of customer success teams that support customers across the country.
Yeah, and we also happen to be based on opposite coasts. I'm here in California. Kat is in Florida, so hence the name of our podcast.
Yes, we're very clever over here. Today, we're tackling a topic that every customer success manager, sales rep, and support team deals with, which is customer feedback.
Yep, it's a big one. And last episode, we talked about how internal teams and internal feedback strengthens internal teams. And now we're flipping the script and we're actually going to talk about how to handle customer feedback effectively.
Yes, not all feedback from our customers is created equal.
Yeah.
So it's important we know what to prioritize, what to ignore, and how to push back without damaging the relationship with your customer.
So Kat, tell us, why does customer feedback matter and why is it so dang tricky to manage?
I know, right? It's really tricky, but customer feedback is gold. It helps us improve our products. It helps us refine our processes. It helps us strengthen our customer relationships. But let's be honest, Tam. It can be really overwhelming, especially when you're in so many calls and you're getting feedback left and right. You're like, what do I do with all of this? Feedback can be thought of in three buckets. Some feedback is valuable and needs some action. The second bucket is a nice to have feedback. So it is helpful to hear, but maybe it just doesn't align in the moment with the company or the team goals. And then the third bucket is feedback that's just not the right fit or is not technically possible with whatever software or products that you offer.
Yeah, exactly. I like that breakdown. Thinking through this big challenge we have, which is actually like sorting through all of that feedback and putting them in each of those piles that you named, being able to identify those patterns, figuring out, I think, when you're customer facing, when to say yes, when to say not right now, and when to say no in a way that keeps trust intact. So like Kat, let's talk a little bit about, how should we approach prioritizing that customer feedback?
I love a simple framework, and I have one just for this topic. So I want to break down 4 categories that you should consider when prioritizing feedback. The first category is impact versus effort. Is this feedback something that will do a quick fix that makes a big difference, or is it too much of a lift that really won't impact the business or other customers? The second category is alignment with company goals. So does the feedback fit with our strategy, or is this a one-off request? And for this category, I encourage CSMs to really work closely with product marketing. I found in my experience, when you get some feedback and you're not sure where it fits in these categories, product marketing really helps with, does this align? Is this realistic? The third category is just frequency and patterns. Is this feedback a trend across multiple customers or just one loud voice? And then the fourth category is the customer type. Is this feedback coming from your large customers? Is it coming from a lot of new customers or those in a particular region?
Right. Like I think a great example would be, and I'm saying this from the lens of I've been working in the enterprise world, right, for the last 4 years. So if I hear the same feedback consistently from like 5 large enterprise customers, I'm starting to see a pattern that, the same feature requests are coming in. We're noticing it. We're hearing that feedback over and over. That's a signal. But if one customer asks for something really custom and we haven't heard that anywhere else, and it doesn't really seem like it's a large ask across the region or across tiers, we need to really assess if it benefits kind of like the broader user base.
Exactly. And we probably have been there when a customer asks for something very custom, and unfortunately, we have to say no. So, Tam, what do you do when you have to say no?
Basically, it can be really tricky. And like we talked about earlier, the relationship is really important. And so the relationship here is at stake. And honestly, we appreciate the feedback. So the fact that someone's willing to share the feedback, regardless of what bucket that falls in, like we genuinely appreciate that. So let's talk through kind of how to respond, knowing that like not all feedback is created equal. And we genuinely appreciate anyone coming to us with feedback. So the first thing that I would do is I would acknowledge the feedback. Thank you so much for sharing it. That's really great feedback. We really appreciate that that you came to us and shared that. The second thing, if possible, is I would try to give context. So right now we're focused on XYZ. We're focusing on building a new product. We're focusing on fixing a current product or rolling out a new feature. But we're going to keep this feedback in mind for the future. And that gives the customer just a little bit of context on where we're at in terms of like our roadmap internally. Another thing I might do is offer alternatives. And we often call those workarounds too. We don't have that feature, but here's a workaround that might help, and try to give them another way to accomplish the same goal without actually changing the product or honoring the specific piece of feedback. And then the last thing that I recommend is just always kind of following up. So like, hey, I'll share this with our product team. We'll keep you posted if anything changes.
So saying no doesn't have to mean shutting the door. It's about keeping the conversation open and ensuring that your customers feel heard. And you mentioned the word trust earlier. That really resonates, because if a customer is giving you feedback, they trust that you're going to do something with it. So it's important to think about how you respond when you know you have to say no.
Yeah, totally. Customers really, people, let me just say people, not just customers, human. We really just, we want to feel heard. And so on the other end of that, like for us and for our teams, we want to make sure that our customers are feeling really heard. So like kind of thinking through all of that, Kat, what do you do with all of that feedback?
Yeah, that's a great segue to the next part of our conversation here, which is once you gather that feedback, what's next? It's not just about listening, it's about getting it to the right people and making it actionable. So we do have 3 best practices that we wanted to highlight. The first is just logging it properly. When you get that feedback, using whatever tools you use, whether it be a CRM, Slack, even like a Google spreadsheet, having a feedback tracker, which we do in our company. We have a way that we log feedback and it's visible across all teams. The second best practice is advocating for customers. If you hear the same feedback repeatedly, escalating it. And I think that's where also logging it is really critical, because you could always go back and start analyzing trends and saying, oh, I'm noticing that over the past 6 months, 50% of my customer base has requested X. And using that data strengthens your advocacy. The last best practice is closing the loop. So if a request gets built, let your customers know that it's been done and they'll appreciate it. And if it's not being worked on, still close the loop and say, hey, I took your feedback, our internal teams know, and I'll keep you posted on what's next.
Yeah, definitely. I think the most fun thing when you're a customer success manager is when they give feedback and then the product actually does get updated. You can be like, hey, this was your idea. And like, look, we took your feedback and we got to make these improvements to the product. Like, thank you so much. That's like a really fun part of it, right? So there are some positives and some fun aspects to receiving feedback, and then some really tricky pieces. And what I'll say is, I think, Kat and I have seen the most effective customer success managers don't just collect feedback, right? They are able to filter it out into those 3 buckets we talked about, and then translate it into action while also balancing customer needs and business priorities.
Well said, Tam. So to wrap up, customer feedback is invaluable, but managing it effectively is what really makes the difference.
Here's your action step. Next time a customer shares feedback, pause before reacting. So don't go into immediate, like, nope, we can't do that. Yep, we're going to do that. Pause. Ask yourself the following questions. Is this something I should escalate? How should I frame my response? Can I provide an alternate solution?
Great action steps for our listeners. If you've got any other tips to share to handling customer feedback, please feel free to let us know, share in the comments, reach out to us. We love to hear what everyone is doing in the field when it comes to handling customer feedback.
Yeah. And thank you all so much for listening to Coast to Coast, Customer Success in Practice. Kat and I love to be here. We love to hear your feedback about the podcast. Please definitely reach out. And until next time, we're out.